Hi, it's Morish Shlomo again. I want to teach you guys about the story of Pesach. Now, the main part of the story is that the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt, and then they escaped and became free. But I never taught you about how the Jewish people got to Egypt. So here's a little background. We learned about Avraham, or Abraham, who had a son Yitzchak, or Isaac, who had a son Yaakov, or Jacob. Now, Yaakov had 12 children, okay? And they were actually considered the 12 tribes. Now, these 12 children, from those 12 children, they all came from 4 wives. One of the wives had 2 children. One was Yosef, or Joseph, and one was Benjamin, or Benjamin. The brothers were a little jealous. The other 10 brothers were a little bit jealous because they said, it seems like Yaakov is treating our brother Yosef differently. And he seems to like him better than all the other children. So they're already jealous of him. And sometimes Yosef would come to his father and say, hey, guess what my brothers are doing? They're doing something wrong. I think he misunderstood what they were doing, but he saw what they were doing as wrong, and he kind of tattled on his brothers. This made them more upset. Then Yosef has a dream one night, and he goes to his brothers and says, guess about what I had about what my dream was about. We each had bundles of grains bundles of grain, like wheat, that we were tying together. Then all our bundles stood up, and your bundle surrounded my bundle, and they started bowing to my bundle of grain. That was my dream. So the brothers say, what do you think that means? Do you think that means that you're going to be king over us? And they were pretty jealous of him. That made them even more upset. Then Yosef came a different day and said, I had another dream. This dream was that I was standing and there were 11 stars surrounding me. That's his 11 brothers. And the sun and the moon, that's his mother and father, are standing around me, and all of you guys, the sun and the moon and all the stars bow down to me. This made the brothers upset, and even the father kind of understood. And this made the brothers upset. And they said, we have to make a plan to get rid of Yosef. They did not say that in front of him, obviously. They said, we have to make a plan. So they discussed amongst each other. They said, except Benjamin, Yosef's brother Benjamin was not part of this, because he was the youngest brother. So the brothers were talking, and they said, we should kill him. We should just kill him. I know, if I'm upset at my brother, I don't say, maybe I should kill him. So one of the brothers, Reuven, the oldest brother, said, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should just throw him into a pit. So the brother said, okay, let's do that. So they threw the brother into a pit. Then Reuven had to go someplace. So he left. He says, in his mind, he said, I'm going to come back later and save him. Now, while Reuven was gone, a caravan, like some wagons with some Arabs or Yishmaelim came by, and they decided, you know what? We're going to sell him. Now, we're going to sell him to those Yishmaelim. We're going to sell them to those people and the merchants that were selling spices. We're going to sell him as a slave, and then we never have to worry about him again. So that's what the brothers did. And when Reuven came back that night, he goes, and he looks in the pit, he's like, where'd he go? What we do? What are we going to tell our father? We shouldn't have done this. So they decided to tell the father that Yosef was attacked. So at one point, they ripped his coat off of him, took his coat off. And they made it look like it. And they brought it to his father and said, look, it looks like our brother was attacked. It was all ripped up, and it looks like he was attacked. And the father goes, oh no, he must be dead. What are we going to do? And he was all sad about it. And now fast forward a little bit. Yosef ends up in a place called Mitzrayim in Egypt. While he's in Egypt, he ended up as somebody's like slave, someone's servant. And through a different chain of events, of a bunch of things happening, that Yosef first he was working in this house, then he ended up in jail, and then he ended up in that jail. 2 people, officers of the king, Paro of the king, had dreams, and they were in jail, but then they had dreams about something happening, and then he interpreted their dream, and it came true. And then when Paro had a dream, he had a dream years later. He had a dream, and they called Yosef out of the jail to translate, to interpret the dream about what was happening. And his dream was that there are 7 skinny cows. Yeah, he dreamt about cows. There's 7 skinny cows and 7 fat cows. Then the skinny cows just ate up the fat cows, but never got fatter. I wish I could do that. And he ate up with macaroni and cheese. They ate up the 7 cows, and they never got fatter. And that, he goes, I just don't understand. And then he had that same dream with, then he had that same dream again, something like that. And Yosef interpreted the dream saying, we're going to have 7 years of lots and lots of food in Egypt. And then we're going to have 7 years with nothing. There's going to be something called a famine. There's going to be no food. And he suggested you should store up food now. And then if you store up the food now, then everybody's going to need the food when there's no food left. And Egypt will be the only place that has food, and they'll all buy from us and we'll become really rich. So the king ended up making Yosef second in command in the whole Egypt, which is pretty cool. He went from being a Jewish person, like just a regular person, to being sold as a slave, to going to jail, to all of a sudden becoming the second in command of Egypt. And part of this is showing that God controls everything. Although we don't understand why things happen, there's always some type of master plan of everything. So he gets to Egypt. So now he's one of the people in charge, and it ends up through a chain of events. It ends up his brothers now come to Egypt at some point, and they said, we need food. So the father sends them to Egypt, and they need food for their families. And they end up seeing Yosef, their brother, not recognizing him. And he kind of plays around with it a little bit. And he ends up saying, I'm Yosef. I'm your brother. And they got really worried. They're like, oh my goodness, my brother's in charge of Egypt. Is he going to punish us? And he goes, I'm not upset. Let's bring and they ended up bringing their whole family over to Egypt to live there, and to live in a town called Goshen. And they all moved there. And so the Jewish people ended up all in Egypt. It was actually 70 people from the family came over. It was Yaakov and the wives and children and grandchildren. It ended up 70 people came over to Egypt. And that's how the Jewish people lived happily in Egypt. Now, next time I'm going to tell you what happens when Yosef's not around anymore, and when the brothers aren't around anymore, because it's many years later, what's going to happen to the Jewish people. But now you know how the Jewish people got to Egypt. I will see you next time. Have a Shabbat Shalom and be good. I'll see everybody. Stay healthy. Bye.